Everything in marketing has changed. Now, my story begins on a shopping trip in Paris, where I'd gone with my family to Disneyland. Disneyland's kind of my thing. I have to go every 2 years. I think it's one of the best expressions of brand. But on this particular occasion, we're in Paris, and I have been blessed with 3 daughters, Kimberly 24, Claudia 21, Jasmine 19. And whenever we go away abroad, we always have to build in a shopping day. So we end up in the centre of Paris, and on the list of shops is a shop called Abercrombie & Fitch. Now, I don't know if you know Abercrombie & Fitch, but they're kind of a high-end fashion retailer for young boys and girls, and somewhere where somebody my age doesn't take their credit card. So we're looking for this Abercrombie & Fitch. We're told it's on the Champs-Élysées, so we take the metro up to the Arc de Triomphe end, and we start to walk down. And after an hour and a quarter, we've reached the Place de la Concorde end, and we have not found this Abercrombie & Fitch. Now, I'm getting a bit grumpy, as you might expect. You know, it's been a bit of a while now that we've been on this shopping trip, haven't found the shop we were looking for. So the mobile phones are out, we check it out, and it does seem to be on the Champs-Élysées, somewhere up on the left-hand side. So we agreed to walk up. And after a short time, we come across a sign in a fence. Now, this must be the place. It's got these beautiful ornate gates next to them. So we approach the gates. 2 very fine-looking young boys stop us. They go, "No, no, mademoiselle, you cannot come in." So, what do you mean we can't come in? "Ah, you have to join the queue." The queue? So we look at this queue and we go, "Well, how long is this queue?" "Ah, today it is about 45 minutes. For 45 minutes? Right, I'm out by this time." So I go and agree to sit on a bench and wait for them while they queue for 45 minutes. And eventually they get to the front of the queue and they go in. And I think, oh, that's probably another hour before they're going to come out again. So I'm sat there thinking, what's going on here? You know, this shop's really hard to find. You've got a queue to get into it. And then it dawns on me that everybody who's coming out of Abercrombie & Fitch is carrying an Abercrombie & Fitch bag. Well, at least it seems that way. So I count the first 100, and of the first 100, 83 people seem to be carrying an Abercrombie & Fitch bag. So I think, well, that can't possibly be right. So I'll tell you what, I'll count them again. So I count them again, and lo and behold, 81 people are carrying an Abercrombie. So I sit there and I think, there's something going on here. Here is the shop you cannot find. You have to queue to get in, you can't see inside, you don't know what's on sale in there, and it leads to an 82% conversion rate. Now, I don't know about you, but how many of you would like a business where nobody can find it? When they find it, it's impossible to navigate your website or get into your premises or your shop or whatever, and then ultimately it leads to an 82% conversion rate. How many of you would like a business like that? Well, I tell you what, I'm certainly one of them. So I started thinking about what it was that was going on. Now, what's interesting about this whole journey is it kind of characterizes where we are today, because now we have to queue to get into many of the shops that we go into. A very similar thing must be going on here. So in this session, I'm going to explain how you become the go-to brand so that actually people come and join the queue for your business. The first thing you need to think about and really be clear about, it's not about selling anymore. It's all about helping people to buy. And in reality, only the people who follow a marketing system or a marketing strategy are the ones that are really getting under the skin of how people buy from you and how you can help them. Now, this is inspired by a book for me that came out in 2011, a book called The Challenger Sale, where actually they advocated and found out that because of all the information that was available on the internet, that you had to attract people by challenging their thinking, providing them with loads and loads of insight. And so we all did that. We wrote blogs, 500 words long. We started doing clever emails and tweets and things like that, and do it in a way that's very insightful. This was done by an organization called CB, who followed it up 3 years ago with a book called The Challenger Customer. And in this, it has a revelation. And that revelation is, at the point of first contact, people have made 57% of the decision to buy from you. Now, this gets you thinking about, hold on, marketing must have changed a lot then, because by the time they arrive with us, they've already more likely to be prone to buying from us than not buying from us, 57%. So this has characterized much of the work that I've done since 2011 to help businesses develop insightful marketing communication to attract them towards their particular business. And what it means is that actually it's not about outbound marketing anymore. Actually, what this means is that you broadcasting and shouting at people and telling them what you do is just really not working. On average, we receive 18,000 marketing messages every single day. Can you remember the 18,000 you saw yesterday? I very much doubt it. And in fact, breaking through now is almost entirely impossible. There's so much noise through the different media, the different communications. What actually marketing is about now is reeling people inbound. It's like going fly fishing. It's taking a 2-pound breaking strain line and throwing it over with a fly over a fish which weighs 10 pounds. And when it eventually bites, just gently coaxing it in, nurturing it, getting it tight, making it move towards the shore so you can scoop it out with your keep net. That's how marketing works today. And this is backed up with yet more research. Here's something that I think is astonishing, and that is that up to 88% of people undertake pre-purchase research online. And this information is from the E-Commerce Foundation and somebody called Mary Meeker of Klein Perkins, who actually has been researching the internet since I got involved in 1987. What this means is that we wake up with a problem, with a challenge, and then what we do is we go online, we check out what's available, we qualify our problem, we see if it's real, and then what we do is we go through all the lists that are on the page there, and then we decide which ones we like, and then those are the ones we go and check out. It means that by the time we've kind of contacting people for the first time, we're pretty clear on what we want to buy. We probably know it pretty well, actually. Got that. Fantastic. Help businesses generate online traffic is all very exciting. But actually, it's all changed again. And what's happened, of course, is that because people like me and many other people that are going to be on this 2-day conference have been helping businesses be insightful, be online, be present, create content, actually now Gartner, who bought CEB, the people behind Challenger Sale and Challenger Customer, have now issued a piece of research that says there's so much good stuff out there that actually 89% of B2B buyers, and this applies to B2C as well, are saying, you know what, I'm seeing loads of good information from loads of different people, and now I'm confused again. Oh, just when we thought we got it right. And what Gartner are now saying is that those that people kind of tell their insights, just get them out. The people who give them away are really good, but the people who are really making a difference, are creating go-to brands, are the people who are making sense of how to buy from people. Now let me demonstrate this. So I work with an organisation called A Room in the Garden. Now, of course, it's something that with the pandemic, we've all been really keen to find a space where we can work away from our own homes because we're all working from home. And what they saw is huge traffic, something at the beginning of March and into April, and that's really maintained itself. But the real fascination about this is it's come really from 2 particular places. This is a list of all of their blogs that they have, and most of their business comes from the top 2. The first one is simply 20 great summer house ideas. Amazing rooms in the garden. They're getting 6,000-7,000 people checking that out. And the second one is actually how to connect your garden room to the internet. They've got all of their business from these 2 blogs. They're making sense of something that's really difficult for people. And that's what we have to do. It's what we have to do to become a go-to brand. We need to create sense making in the marketplace so that when people are looking to buy, they're online, they get to you, you help them make sense of what's going on. But talking about brand, let's just define that, because I know there are some people who say, well, branding and brand are all the same. Let me tell you something right now. Having helped put over 570 brands into the market over the last 35 years, brand is nothing to do with branding. Let me give you a definition of brand. In 1999, I became the youngest managing director of a top 200 advertising agency that had at its heart a thing called the brand bucket. One of these. In my first board meeting, I sat there and I said, okay, guys, I get what a bucket is. It's one of these metal things, very good, it's quite clever, but what's a brand? And we had at our disposal 148 person years of brand creating experience. We filled 7 A1 sheets of flip chart paper with all our answers. I have a list of 74 different answers. And the reality of that is we didn't really know. I've been in the business some 15 years or so, so I embarked on a journey with the team there to come up with a definition of brand, which I'm going to share with you right now. And we define brand as every experience that affects the relationship between a product or service and its buyer. Let me just explain that very briefly, because this is fundamental to what we're talking about. You see, the first thing is a true brand can only exist in the mind of a buyer, somebody who has exchanged their hard-earned cash or indeed given up time. Bear in mind, cash is really a reflection of people's time. We have to go to work to earn the money that we can spend on things. Make no mistake, they have to be a buyer, because it's only when they're a buyer do they have a true sense of the value that you provide. But the key thing about brand today is that it is a relationship that people value more than they value the money in their pocket. So the role of brand now is to make sure that every experience, everything you do in your business, every element of your systems and processes are directed towards conveying this promise of a relationship which will be worth more than the relationship the prospects have with their money. And here's a key thing. If you could do that well, what are they going to do with their money? They're going to take it out of their pockets and they're going to give it to you in exchange for your products and services. So we have to get this right. The brand today is a relationship. And actually business is a set of commercialized relationships, whether it's with the product or with the service. The reality is that unless we build and maintain and nurture those relationships, people won't give you money. It's all really rather simple. So let me explain what makes up a relationship. You see, in 2001, we were completely flummoxed as an agency by the events of September the 11th. And as a result, I pulled my team of 25 together and said, we really need to create a formula for marketing success that will service the modern day client, the one that lives in this new digital economy. We set out on a 6-month journey to do just that. We allocated jobs to everybody. Everybody knew what they were doing. That job, however, was completed 7 years later in 2009. And today I run a completely separate organisation where I help specific businesses, I mentor, I give keynotes on stage when we can, and explain to people what it is we learn and what the formula for marketing success is. Now clearly I can only touch on it in this session, but let me give you an indication of what we found out. The first thing we found out is actually there are 2 key foundation stones. The first one is you must have a business story. A story that when you say it to people, it goes, that kind of makes sense. I see why you are worth more than the money in my pocket. If you cannot tell that story, no matter how clever your product or service is, you're actually going to find you can't sell anything, because it's all reliant on having a strong, what we call in the industry, value proposition. Now, I don't mean a fancy set of words that you put in a frame or in a consultant's document and you stick it up on the shelf. I don't mean that. I actually mean a working tool which you can use on a daily basis across your whole organisation, from the warehouse shop floor right up to board level. So let me explain what makes up a value proposition. And in fact, we have defined this with 4 Bs. The first B is your behavioural style. You have to define your behavioural style. You see, because we buy from people we like who are like us. So therefore, it's an imperative that you understand what you're like so that you can actually attract people who are like you. And it's a meeting of emotional intensity. And therefore, if you defined your behavioural values, you can make that the style of the way you do business. And that today is one of the key differentiators between businesses and brands across the marketplace. So you've got to define your behavioural style. But this is just an emotional engagement. It just means people like you. They've heard of you, they like you, that's kind of cool. So the next thing you have to do is you have to communicate the second set of values, which are your benefits. Benefits, benefits, benefits. Now, If you're a technician in a business, if you run a business, you're probably very good at the features of your business. But nobody's interested in features because we found that out while we were looking for you, while we were going through the 57% journey to get to you in the first place. We found all your kind of features and all your clever stuff. What we need help understanding is, how does that benefit me? How does it benefit your buyer? Now, the way to convey benefits is to take all your features, which are probably all over your website and in all your literature and all in your documents and all that sort of thing, and put "so what" after everything you've said. Whatever you write next, that's more likely to be a benefit than what you wrote in the first place. So you need to convey your benefits. So now I've heard, I like you, I've got your behavioural style, it's kind of the style I like, it's how I see myself. And now I understand how you're going to benefit me. The third set of values that you have to communicate are your beliefs, what you want people to believe about being in a relationship with you. And these beliefs are really important because in the spirit of Stephen R. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you have to begin with the end in mind. The second rule is, first is be proactive. The second one is begin with the end in mind. You have to do that in brand development terms, in brand terms. You have to decide what you want people to believe about you. If you don't do that, then actually you're just throwing stuff out there and hoping it sticks. Whereas actually you have focus on what you want people to believe about you. It really helps. And then the final fourth step, what do you want to be famous for? Find a something that you can hang on to. I'm kind of keen on buckets. So therefore, wherever I go, you'll see a bucket. That's how I get known. So the 4 steps for your value proposition, the 4 sets of values, all beginning to be, are your behavioural style, your benefits, your beliefs, and ultimately what you want to be famous for. Once you've defined those, they can then be mixed and matched around to go with various different organisations, different pieces of communication, and you can create really strong brand relationships. But it's only half the story. That's kind of you define, that's what you're about. The next thing we need to define is who you're going to engage with. Now, I often hear people say, well, we're looking for more customers, more clients, more users, that sort of thing. The problem with using that kind of language in your business when it comes to marketing is it, in neuroscience terms, leads you to the part of your brain where you think you're already in a relationship. You're talking to a customer, they must know something about you. A client, they must know something about you. Because what you should be focusing on is your prospect. Somebody who is going through life, they're wandering around all over the place and they have no idea that you even exist. But we have to define prospects in an entirely different way. You see, what's been happening is the broadcast industry has become the tail that wags the dog, and the broadcast industry rely on a thing called demographics, categorizing people into A, B, C1, C2, D, E, 25 to 54, living in the southeast, with a disposable income of £15,000 a year, possibly 60% male, 40% female. That's kind of a demographic profile. Let me tell you, it's complete nonsense. It's useless when it comes to building relationships because they're just a number. What you have to do now is you have to profile your ideal prospect psychographically. In other words, what you have to do is create a narrative, a profile, which is how they think, how they feel, what their experience is of your particular sector, what they're looking for, what they're seeking to achieve, all of these things all wrapped up into a beautiful profile. Because here's the thing, you've created your value set. Now you're identifying with a value set in the marketplace that all your prospects must have. And then actually building a relationship between those two things is really, really easy. So let me explain how you do that. We use a marketing system called the brand bucket, and we've systemized this into 3 strategic steps. So imagine, if you would, that your business is a bucket. Now, often people talk about these things. We call it the F word in our business, but actually these are fundamentally flawed because they have a hole in the bottom. They underpin the whole broadcast industry because you can use them to shout at. Complete waste of time when it comes to building a brand. Maybe a useful tool in building leads, but actually is building a brand. Complete waste of time. What you need is a vessel that's going to keep people in it. Imagine, therefore, that your business is a bucket. And actually what your job is to bring people and pour them in. So what we're doing is we're going to put prospects into the top of the bucket, and there are 3 key strategic steps. The first strategic step is you've got to engage people to get them to come into your bucket in the first place. Now, what do I mean by that? You've got to raise awareness, you've got to tell people you exist, but what you must also do is you've got to provide insight in the marketplace. Get found by the people who share your psychographic profile, and then help them make sense of what they're doing. Help them buy from you. Now, this means that at the end of this quite expensive, quite challenging process, doing the blogs and the tweets and the white papers and the speeches and the absolute top of the bucket stuff, what you've got to do is you've got to engage people emotionally. All they say is, I kind of like the cut of the jib of these people. They seem to know what they're talking about, and when I listen to them, they seem to understand what I'm looking for. If you've got that right, they're going to say, well, what do you do? Now, there's something really important here, because often people say, well, actually, what do you mean? What do you do? I list out all my features. I describe my bucket to you. That's not what they're asking. At this stage, you've got to be able to demonstrate exactly what you do for people. And there are really two steps to this. First of all, you've got to communicate all your benefits. But the second thing you've got to do is give people a test drive. Immerse them in your value proposition. Give them a go. You've been the go-to brand, give them a go. Now, the thing about this is, of course, what happens is people are drawn to that. And actually, this represents their 57% journey. It really does. It absolutely drives them down in towards the purchase point. And so what you're doing is giving them a test drive. And the great thing about test drives is they feel great, it's all beautiful, they're doing all those sorts of things. And then what they say is, you say, well, I've got to take it away from you now. The month is up, the free trial is up, the test drive is up. And they go, whoa, you can't take it away from me. Well, listen, I can't keep giving it to you. It's costing me a lot of money. But what will you do when it's not there? I don't know. I don't know how to help. I'm sorry. We can't keep affording. Wait a minute. I do have one idea. Why is that? Why is the idea? Well, you give us money and we'll carry on the relationship. And at that point, they give you the money. That's when the purchase takes place, when they're fully immersed in your value proposition. And this is when most marketing people, they're fantastic. They've done their job. They've taken the suspect. They've turned them into a prospect. They pulled them into the top of the bucket. They've generated the leads. They've gone them from cold to warm to hot. And then they've converted to a sale. And it goes into after sale. And then the marketing people go, job done, lovely, fantastic, let's go to lunch. The reality we find out from our piece of research is this is when the real value is portrayed, because I've given you money and I place the real monetary value on what you're doing. So the final phase, the final strategy is you have to deliver against your promise. At the bottom of the bucket, you have to deliver. And if you don't deliver right at this point, they go away very quickly. They go and buy on price somewhere else. And what I mean by that is you're going to make the experience of being a buyer amazing. What is it you do when people buy from you that's amazing? It makes people go, wow, I wasn't expecting that. We need more of that right now in a new digital economy where they've done all the heavy work themselves. You've got to do some work much later on in the relationship now and make that relationship. And if you get that right, you'll create loyalists, people who will buy more stuff from you, but also tell other people about how great you are. At which point you can feed them straight back into the top of the bucket again. Engage, demonstrate, deliver. Those are the core strategic aspects of all of your marketing activities. Your marketing plan should reflect that. So, in summary, to become a go-to brand in the digital economy, you've got to start with a value proposition. A story that when you tell it to people makes people say, I see why you're worth more than the money in my pocket. It needs to be a working tool, blending four sets of values. You then need to define your ideal prospect. Do that psychographically, how they think and feel, create a profile for somebody you really want to have a relationship with. And then you should focus all of your marketing effort on inbound. Forget outbound right now, it's all about inbound. And run your marketing as a process. I use that is engaging, making sense of your market, being insightful, helping people to buy from you. And once they've done that, you need to demonstrate your value. Show them the benefits working right for them, right at the heart of what they want to achieve. And finally, deliver. Make buying from you amazing so you create long-time loyalists. I've been Barnaby Wynter of the Brand Bucket Company. Thank you very much.